Shalom. Our Torah portion this week, Parshat Behar, presents two very important institutions intended to promote social justice and equality in the ancient land of Israel. The first institution is Shemitah, the seventh year, during which the land is given rest from farming and the fields and the vineyards are open to all. And the second institution, Yovel, the 50th year, in which slaves were to be freed and the land that had changed hands in the last 49 years returns back to its original owners. It's actually a pretty forward-thinking system aimed at ensuring that society does not allow their poorest members to end up with close to nothing. We have a duty to balance the scales of life. That is something I think our society should be thinking about a little more. Now, in the course of detailing these ideas and institutions, the Torah gives us this warning regarding ona'ah, which is wronging others. It says in the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 14, when you sell property to your neighbor or buy anything from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. Al tonu ish et achiv. But then just a few sentences later in verse 17, it says it again. Do not wrong one another. Velo tonu ish et amito. And then it adds, but fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. V'yareita Elohecha ki ani Adonai Elohechem. So I have two questions this week. Why repeat it? Number two, why is the second verse adding greater strength with fear your God? Well, our rabbis took the close repetition of the prohibition here to teach that the Torah is actually talking about two different categories of wronging another person. As the commentator Rashi explains it, the first verse refers to economic wronging. The second verse refers to verbal mistreatment, verbal wronging. The Talmud gives lots of examples of the first one. Here's one. A seller, for example, is not allowed to deceive a customer by disguising inferior produce as new or high quality, by putting the good stuff on the top of the basket and not so good stuff below. Another example, the Talmud says, is you're not allowed to overcharge. A price 1/6 over the market rate, according to the rabbis, was considered exorbitant and grounds for canceling a sale, even though the buyer had agreed to it. Now that is, do not wrong one another, and for verse 14, financially. So what is verbal wronging in the second verse? Well, the interpretation for the rabbis is saying things that, without justification, will cause the other person loss, pain, anxiety, ridicule, or even inconvenience. Here's an example, a modern day example. You go into a store to see a product, let's say a computer. You know full well that you're going to buy a computer online. You're not going to buy it at the store. It's too expensive. So you go to the store that sells computers to make sure which one you want to buy. You see the salesperson whose livelihood is often based on commission. And without telling him your real intentions to buy online, you tell him you're interested in a computer. Then let him explain all the advantages, all the disadvantages of each and every computer he has in the store. Take him away from other customers who he could have sold one to. Get his hopes up that you're such a serious buyer, you're going to make a purchase with him. Then thank him, tell him you'll think about it, and then you go home and buy it online. That, my friends, is verbal wronging of another person. Okay, I get that. Two sentences, two different wrongdoings, if you will. But why, for the second one, do we attach fear of God? So comes Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai in the Talmud and says, verbal wrongdoing is more heinous than monetary wrongdoing. Why? Because you usually can't get away with the first one. Think about it. Monetary transgressions will hopefully be discovered and a person can be brought to a court. You try to overcharge or you try to sell inferior products. You wrong a person financially, you can get caught. A court can make you pay. But verbal wronging, it's not slander, but verbal deceiving in a way that you know is wrong. You wouldn't like it to be done to you, but no one will ever be able to know your true intentions. And you could probably get away with that. In the first case, monetary wronging, you fear the courts. But the second one, who can tell whether I had evil intent? Who will ever know what I did? The Torah answers, God will. And God warns you, fear God. God is going to be that person's advocate. You want to exploit the weakness of another? You think you can get away with it? God is not in your corner. He will judge you in favor of the person wronged. In both cases, the weak are exploited, but hopefully in a good society, the injured party has his or her day in court. But verbal wronging, intentionally wronging a person who might not even know how he was wronged, the crime can't be detected. Where is going to be the justice in that? And that's why God's name is attached to that second one. It's to remind us that God suffers the harm done to anyone. And we are reminded that God is the constant champion of the oppressed in every form. And so should we. May we remember that. And as a result, may our actions, may our words, may our innermost intentions always be to treat everyone we meet with the utmost of love, respect, dignity, and honor. Shalom.